So in a second, I'm gonna just go over a little bit of channel updates, recap all the stuff that I made on YouTube this year, because while it wasn't a big year for streaming, I think it was a pretty good year for YouTube for me. We'll talk about what I'll be working on for next year, because I've already got a couple ideas, and then a couple things actually done. Some of the events that I went to, some upcoming events. We'll breeze over the gaming news because a lot of that stuff might be long past due, like announcements that are already out and in old news. But we'll go through it either way. And then the most important thing that we're doing today is we're making a tier list. This tier list is no normal tier list. This tier list is a tier list of games that I've played in the year 2023. Not necessarily games that were released in 2023, because spoilers for that, I think I've only played one game from 2023, and that was Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So I'd rather talk about stuff that I've been playing and put a spotlight on stuff that hasn't always been released in the same year. Ooh, gaming exploits, what's up? Welcome to the stream. I appreciate you joining. Yeah, everybody's gonna have some opinions because, like I said, these are old games and some of them are well-known games, and I'm not gonna spoil anything just yet. So as far as channel updates go, I put out 2 videos since the last time I streamed. One of them was on Dark Cloud. I'm really happy with how this video turned out. A lot of people, like, I've heard about Dark Cloud for a while and I never played it up until recently. It's always been this like cult classic that I've heard about but never played. Let me give you the big screen image. So it was cool finally getting to play the game. It was a pretty easy game to write for because it was it had these really distinct combination of gameplay styles, like the town building and the dungeon crawling. So it was interesting seeing how they like combine those two aspects, especially like in the time that it came out, because like the only thing that I can think of that's older that tried to do the same thing was ActRaiser. That's another series I gotta eventually play and maybe even do a video on. And then the other thing that I released was a YouTube short, and that was on 9 Years of Shadows. This was a cool Metroidvania game that so I love Metroidvanias. I actually found this game through a YouTuber who was like kind of showcasing some lesser known Metroidvanias that came out. And the thing with this game at the time was it was really buggy. And that it was buggy enough that it really hampered the overall experience, which is a real shame. But I wishlisted the game anyway because I thought it looked really pretty. And on Steam, it'll actually show you developer updates. And pretty much every single month, the developers were putting time into updating and bug fixing the game. So just seeing that, I decided to take a chance. And it honestly became one of my favorite games that I played this year. And in fact, they just finished kickstarting another game. They just finished kickstarting this game, Mirachi Legends, which seems like it's going to be Metroidvania mixed with like a bigger focus on combat and combos. And like the pixel artist for the studio is so good at their work. I even saw, let's go to Halberd Studios Kickstarter, because they also kickstarted 9 Years of Shadows years ago. And they showed some early footage of the game, and you can tell that they really put work. Like, look how different the visuals are on this first Kickstarter compared to like how they are now. You can see that they like took a lot of time into like really making 9 Years of Shadows look good. Mariachi? Oh yeah. You're right, I definitely misspoke then. So like, look at this footage right here compared to the footage that I show in the short. Like, you can see, especially in the backgrounds and in the character animation, just like how much work they put into this game over the years, both like before it came out and post-launch support. So that's awesome. And this was the first video too that my video got, like, my take actually got some criticism, which is fine. Like, I think it's cool to have differing opinions. When I make YouTube shorts, I'm trying to put a spotlight on like a single feature in a game that I think is cool, something that might not necessarily, I might not have a lot to say in a full video. I want to do a YouTube short just to highlight one single feature. And the way that this game does health, I thought was really interesting. Not without problems, of course, and like, you can't dissect a mechanic like too much in a 1-minute YouTube short. But overall, I thought that the health system was something that I thought was worth highlighting in this game. And like I said, it's going to be on the tier list that we do soon, but it was one of my favorite games that I played this year. I'm looking forward to the studio's next game. What's up, Mox? Yeah, I was telling everybody earlier, this is the most important stream of the year, right? Right, guys? Right, guys? And this is a collage of... Did I really do... No, this is the year before's. I wanted to highlight the collage. You can look at 2022's video uploads while I find 2023's. But I made a collage of all the game videos that I did this year. And I thought I had the right years up. I wonder where it went. I can just go to social media instead. So this right here is just a collage of all the videos that I released this year. As I'm like super happy with how the channel's going. I'm really happy with all the support. Like, even right now with this stream, I'm happy you guys are here and like want to listen to me talk about video games, and even if it's not always the most relevant stuff, I like the passion that a lot of my viewers seem to have watching my videos. So as far as like workload goes, what I want to try to do, bar like the holiday season, is try to do like a full video every other month and do a YouTube short every other month. And I think I did a good job with that this year. There was 5 full videos, and again, I'm uploading videos when I have ideas for them, rather than like just trying to upload consistently. Like, that's the more important thing for me. So whenever I have an idea for a game that's not a single video game review, rather like an idea, the movement in games video that I did, I'm really happy with. I actually commissioned a friend of mine who like wants to remain anonymous, but like I thank him anyway. Did the thumbnail for that video, and I think it looks great. I've got more ideas for videos that are ideas rather than just single game reviews, but they take a lot longer, of course. So when I'll be mulling over those while I make my standard reviews, and I've got plenty of ideas for YouTube shorts. They're real easy to make, so I'm happy with the quality of the videos. I'm happy with the reception of the videos, and just the performance of the channel and stuff. It's really nice. Events. There were a couple events since the last time I streamed. One of them was Climb Cancel. Climb Cancel is a 2-day video game tournament. The gist of it, it started as a competitive Catherine, the Atlas puzzle action game from Atlas. It's got a really small but really passionate community that plays it competitively. And so with Climb Cancel, they kind of branched out into either hosting other niche competitive communities to join in. Like the year before was the Sonic Riders competitive community, which I didn't know was a thing. They have their own build of the game that like patches and adds new content and stuff like that. it's really cool, and like I wouldn't have found it without like going to Climb Cancel. They'll either do that, or they will pick a game, and then them as a group try to get really good at it throughout the year, and then come to Climb Cancel and play it. And I think this year was a combination of... It was a combination of Armored Core 6 and Dynasty Warriors 3, which I didn't know had a multiplayer mode. Excuse me. I've been feeling pretty good, and I am going to MagFest. I'm looking forward to MagFest, as I do every year. And like another big aspect of Climb Cancel are mystery tournaments, where every round is hosted by, or every round is a different fighting game, or just a different game. It's not even a fighting game. Every round's a different game, and you have to like adapt and learn and like figure it out. And a lot of them are obscure on purpose, so it's really cool. Just like having tournament events that are pretty casual in nature. So like definitely support Climb Cancel, everything they do in the future. I'm a little biased because my cousin is a competitive Catherine player and one of the TOs for the event, but it's a great time every year. I'd love to see some more people check it out. Yeah, there's like really random games like Akira Pinball that like nobody's ever heard of. It's either like games that you wouldn't know have a multiplayer feature. Like my first round was Billy Hatcher, and that was like perfect for me because I love Billy Hatcher. It was just like exciting for me to play that game again. We actually like streamed it a couple years back. And other things are just like absolutely random, like Akira Pinball level obscure things. So upcoming events, speaking of am I going to MagFest, I am going to MagFest. That's going to be, I think it's the last weekend of January, the 18th through the 21st. I'll be going as a humble attendee, but like got a lot of people that go every year, so if you want to hang out while I'm at MagFest, National Harbor, January 18th through 21st. Another thing that I'm really excited about, and I'm really happy Anvil Tree reached out to me about it, because I was considering it, and like now I'm able to pull the trigger, was the Near Orchestra concert that's going to be next year. We're going to see the Chicago concert, and I've never been, so I'm excited to like take a weekend, explore Chicago, and also like I feel like maybe one time that I can't really remember any details have I seen in a live orchestra. So it's exciting for me to see a live orchestra and like the like amazing Near soundtracks, or like yeah, I'm so excited to see them live. There's even a Final Fantasy one that's coming around that would be cool to plan for, but nothing confirmed yet. I'm really excited to see this. That's going to be the first weekend of February. And then I think that's all we have before the tier list. Need to see the Distant... Is that what they called the Final Fantasy one? Distant Worlds? Yeah, I think DC is the closest one to us. I'm open to doing that. We can plan it off stream, of course, but I'm open to going to this. Okay, that's Seattle, Washington. Okay, yeah, we'll plan it. We'll look into it. So, I'm gonna tease you a little bit more. You see the list at the bottom now. You've been teased. I'm gonna browse the gaming news first, because I want the last thing we do to be the tier list. Gaming news. Okay, so we're gonna go back, but we're also gonna skim through a lot of these, because it's been a while. I'm not a regular streamer anymore, but that's okay. Okay, here we go. Chuck, you sent Chrono Odyssey. What is Chrono Odyssey? If I don't know what it is, I'm definitely gonna Next generation open world MMORPG. Interesting. I'm gonna look up the developer while this plays. Is it NPixel? South Korea? Games. Let's look at games. Looks like this is their first game too. What's the MMO part of it? Obviously gonna say it looks like Dark Souls. Yeah, the visuals look really nice too. I think it's getting really easy to make really good graphics these days. Depending on what engine this is, I remember when they were showing off the features, I really like that environment. Pull it up again. That environment's really pretty. They were going over all the features of Unreal Engine 5 and how easy it is to make environments. So it seems like a really cool thing to have an engine that makes the more tedious parts of like game design, environments and such, depending on your art style for sure, because like you still have to put in work to make sure that the game has a good art style. But just like having tools to make tedious parts of game development easier while the quality doesn't exactly dip, like the detail doesn't dip, is really cool. Well, this trailer hasn't shown other players yet. Oh, there we go. As soon as you throw more players into it, I get like Monster Hunter vibes instead. Looks good, but doesn't have a release date yet. For PS5 only, also? I don't see PC or Xbox. Guilty Gear Strive. Mortal Kombat 1. Man, this is before Armored Core dropped. We'll skip the presentations. System Shock. Oh, this is the System Shock remake. This should be out now too. This is something that I want to play. I've always been interested in the like grandfathers of immersive sim games. And like I've seen short reviews on this game, and System Shock is definitely one that needed mechanical updates as far as like the UI and controls and stuff. And it seemed interesting because it does a mix of, one of the complaints in one of the videos I watched was how the environments are still very old school looking, like the hallways and doorways and stuff, but a lot of the enemies and other pieces of the game are like higher quality, which I'm curious to play this for myself to form my own opinions and all that jazz. But it is interesting that they chose to do like a partial visual update, you know? Yeah, something I'm looking forward to eventually playing for sure. Yeah, retro future is like one of my favorite aesthetics. It's real nice. Oh, also, Nintendo had the goal to release a sequel to 1-2 Switch. And is it out? Is it actually, did it drop and not a single person I know talked about it? Everybody 1-2 Switch. This game is out. I've never heard a single person talk about it. That's so funny. Lisa Definitive Edition. That's a good, Ooh, Peach Milk Tea, thank you so much for following. What's up? 1-2 Switch should have been a free tech demo. Yeah. Yeah, and it sucked too because there wasn't a lot out for the Switch on launch. It was just Zelda, which is like, you know, plenty, but hey, I wasn't gonna ask that part. I was just gonna thank you for following, Peach. But thank you, I appreciate it. It's probably because I haven't streamed in a while. Yeah, charging $40 for 1-2 Switch was crazy. And like, I'm a sucker, so I bought it, played it like a couple times. It's like hilarious that they released the sequel. I don't know, man. Anvil Tree and I were excited about the Lisa Definitive Edition. This is a fantastic game that I definitely have to replay because it's been some years, but it is like one of the greatest. And for a while, the problem was that the engine that it was made in, I'm assuming it was RPG Maker. Anvil Tree can probably confirm. But it was really hard to port games from RPG Maker to the Switch into like modern everything. So yeah, RPG Maker. So I'm assuming a lot of work went into this version of the game, including upscaling, new content, kind of like bringing everything up to pace with like a modern indie release. So really excited that this game is like modernized and accessible. And it includes the Painful too, which is a pseudo sequel. But here's all the stuff now. HD visuals, new quests, Definitive Edition adds new endings, new bosses, and new encounters. Yeah, I'm excited to replay Lisa at some point. Summer Games Fest, man, it has been a while. I want to check this game out. I actually haven't played Bennett Foddy games yet, like except for Bop, but I really like the presentation of this like 40-something dude like living in his parents' basement, getting teleported to a new world, and like the comedy in this trailer is great. So I want to check this game out whenever. I don't know if there's, so 2024 is the release date. But it looks like it's essentially like getting over it in Quap, but like newer, you know, just the new thing. All right, let's keep going. This is dropping next year. Only downside of some releases censor the drug references, and some of the soundtrack had to be changed for copyright. Oh, I didn't know about the soundtrack. I knew that there was some censorship with drug references. Yeah, Metaphor I'm really excited about. I've talked about it in the past. I'm excited that all of the goats that made Persona 3 through 5 got together and were like, hey, we've never made a fantasy game. When that's like very standard for JRPGs in general. So seeing them take a crack at something completely new while it's still being like all of the goats, like the character designer, the composer, the director, some other people, like essentially the same team. Wait, wasn't that sample one of the people from Shenmue? It was like a guy lifting something heavy, like, ugh! Like that's the sound he made. Is that, did they have to change that song? Wait, we gotta find it now. We're gonna listen to that. Everybody's gotta listen to it now. I gotta hear the new version then. They essentially took us, for those of you who aren't Anvil Tree, they took a soundbite of this dude from Shenmue lifting something heavy and just like making a weird sound, and then just turned it into a song, like remixed it into a song. And then I'll find the new one. All right, and let's see the nerfed one. Okay, that's not. Moving on. Currently listening to the updated as of 7.21 version. They did their best. It's still pretty good. Alright, back to your regularly scheduled musical broadcast. Dude, I'm getting well fed with Atlas these days. I've got Metaphor to look forward to. We can skip over Tactica. Dude, I mean, my take on Persona 5 sequels is like, Joker's working way too hard. Like, let the man rest. He's been in so many spin-off games, and none of them Persona Arena, by the way. I mean, obviously, I'm like not the biggest fan of the art style, not that that's the biggest part of the game. I want to play, so like I played Persona 5 Dancing. I love the dancing game spin-offs because I like rhythm games. I'm open to trying Scramble. I've heard it's got pretty good RPG mechanics fused with like the normal Muso gameplay. So like I'd be down to give it a shot. I played Persona Q2. Don't play Persona. Don't be like me. Tactica, I just haven't really got into tactics games. Not the biggest fan of the art style. Like, we've already had console constraints where we had to make the characters look chibi in like Persona 3 and 4. Like, we don't need to go back. Like, we've been there. But I mean, it's probably a good game. No shade. I just don't need to play it. I've had my fill. Persona 5 Royal is one of the best RPGs ever made, and like that's just facts. That's just how it's got to be. That's fine. That's great. We love it. And like I've had my fill of Persona 5 characters and tropes and all that. Persona 3 Reload, my favorite game ever made that's extremely hard to recommend, is getting easier and easier to recommend, because before you had to choose between the original PS2 version or the PSP version, both really old games on really old consoles, and you had to make concessions with each one, because Persona 3 on PS2 has really old gameplay, like archaic gameplay choices, like you can't control all your party members, and it's just extremely difficult. And the Persona 3 Portable gets rid of the epilogue, but fixes the combat, gets rid of the overworld. Instead, you're doing the whole game on menus, including like the overworld. There's less to no cutscenes, but they added a female protagonist. So it's like, there's no best version of the game at that point. Then they released Persona 3 Portable on modern devices, including PC, so it's like, hey, now it's accessible. Like, let's go. But finally, this game is being remade from the ground up. It looks amazing. My only complaint is that it doesn't seem to have... I can take the concession to not have the female protag, because, like, that was an anomaly for Persona. But getting rid of the answer, which I think is a really cool story that, like, is really... Another inconvenience about the epilogue in the original release is the game has really terrible control for combat, and on top of that, the epilogue is locked into hard mode. So I'm hoping that they can like really make a definitive version of Persona 3 here, given the compromises we're already seeing. That's my take. Showcases, directs. Oh yeah, Temtem Showdown released in the summertime. I've fallen off playing Temtem as much as I would have liked, but I think it's really cool just how much they're supporting the competitive aspect of it. The newest announcement that they had posted here was essentially it takes a really long time to make teams in a Pokemon game. In Temtem, it's a lot easier, because there's this interface where you can build teams specifically for competitive. You can't use them in the main game, but you can make a team with perfect stats, with perfect items, with perfect moves. Oh, I'm not falling. I did fall for that one time, but I'm not falling for that again. P-boy. That is your real name. I don't know. Fallen for what? Fallen for you. So essentially, you had to buy to play Temtem. Now they released a free standalone version of it that works with the main game, so you can play ranked for free. You can team build and you can play ranked for free just by getting Temtem Showdown. So I just like all of the smart decisions that they make to keep the multiplayer and like kind of like end game stuff alive. And of course it'll like funnel people into playing the main game too. Mario Kart's got all of its DLC now. Let's see what Riviera the Promised Land remaster is. First, let's see what console it was originally for. WonderSwan Color. First launch for WonderSwan Color in Japan, followed by Game Boy Advance in Japan. So we got the Game Boy Advance version. Let me see if I can get gameplay of this. Specifically, I want to see the Color Swan. Or the Color Swan, the WonderSwan Color. Because I've seen footage, thanks to Anvil Tree, of Final Fantasy I Remake on WonderSwan, and it's surprisingly powerful. Like, the games look really good on WonderSwan. I hope to get one eventually. I want to start collecting for WonderSwan. That's cool. It's surprising to have an original, like an original WonderSwan game kind of get brought to the remake territory. This I was super excited about. The limited run showcase was really good. The main standout was them announcing that they're remaking a lot of old games using a proprietary engine that they have, and like the Carbon engine. And my understanding is it just makes it easier to support games using that engine. So like I'm hoping to look forward to a lot more re-releases. And Clock Tower was never originally brought to the West, so that's why it's there. People don't know. I try to tell them, but they don't know. So much good content. You can say that again, Lil B-boy. Yeah, so having a game like this officially get released, and I think they're even like, this is all widescreen, the opening. They're like putting additional work into making the game kind of stand out. I think there's even like an animated, well, there's like this art in the background. So looking forward to that. More Project L stuff. All-Star Brawl is out now. I actually haven't played the sequel. The first game was standout for me. I had a lot of fun playing it, and I eventually should get the sequel. Oh, this was cool. They announced the new expansion, Dawn Trail, for Final Fantasy XIV, and they expanded the free trial to Stormblood. So, like, if you've ever... It's, like, so hard not to be a shill for Final Fantasy XIV, and I don't even play it like that. But you can play the base game of Final Fantasy XIV for free. You can play Heaven's Ward expansion for free. You can play Stormblood expansion for free. Before you give them any money, like, you can sunk cost fallacy your way into like playing an MMO even if you like don't play them. It's so crazy to me. It's such a generous thing, but it works. Like, it got me to play the main game for as like infrequently as I play it. Like, it's still there. Clock Tower PS1 had a US port. Wait, no, it was under a different name. Clock Tower... Really? I don't believe that. I don't believe you. Clock Tower the First Fear? Clock Tower the First Fear, originally known as Clock Tower. It was developed blah blah blah, Nintendo Super Famicom in Japan. Been ported to PC. First few years an enhanced port of the game released for PlayStation in Japan. I don't think this got a US release date. This is a really bad list. Usually they'll put the region releases. I see Japan PSN. Sending a picture of it to your phone. Send it to the Discord Gaming News if you can, if you don't mind. I guess we can. eBay's a good measure for this too. If there's any like US copies of yeah, share it to the class. This doesn't have ESRB and Japan import. I don't think this was released. I don't think Clock Tower 1 was ever released in the US. This is the only one I see as far as like listings. Let me see what you sent me before you So that they did a naming thing with that's actually a different Clock Tower game. It's just called Clock Tower 1. It's Clock Tower 2, and our Clock Tower 2 is something else, if I remember correctly. Clock Tower series. Yeah, Clock Tower, known in Japan as Clock Tower 2. But what is the gameplay of this one? Yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm right. There's Clock Tower, never released in the West until like now with limited run. There's Clock Tower, which is actually Clock Tower 2. The Struggle Within, known as Clock Tower Ghost Head. Yeah, they pulled a Final Fantasy on you. And then Clock Tower 3 is Clock Tower 3. Oh, my heart. This is the saddest news on the gaming news. I actually like removed the page for it. I'm opening up the link. Gundam Evolution end of server. So I can't find the article, but this was an article announcing that Gundam Evolution was reaching end of service. It was a really fun multiplayer game, and like I have a really hard time finding multiplayer games that I like playing. So when like Gundam Evolution came around, when Gundam Evolution, it's like essentially Overwatch but with Gundams, so it's like class-based team shooter, but it was balanced really well, where like everybody does just enough damage, everybody is just useful enough, where you have to be like perfectly efficient to get kills, which like requires teamwork to like, because obviously like two people, if that's the case, if you have like a second person, then you know you're gonna have a greater advantage, plus like teamwork, positioning, abilities, all that junk. So it was like a really fun game to play. It was really well balanced, but it didn't have the player base, unfortunately, which is like kind of crazy for Gundam. And when it launched, it had really like crappy microtransactions and like a storefront and all that stuff. But the game itself was really fun. I put a lot of hours into it. It was like my casual go-to game. And sadly, they ended service at the end of November, so you cannot play it anymore. So this is now like legacy footage of a game we can no longer play. So I'm trying to find another game to replace Gundam Evolution, and for right now that's going to be I'm going to try Titanfall 2, because they actually just put the servers back up so you can play it without going through like fan supported servers. And it's like on sale for $5 whenever it goes on sale. This action creator collecting game, summon and control creatures. That's cool. Like an action Pokemon game, I guess. New Under Night game I'm excited about. Sea of Stars is getting a physical release. That's when I'm gonna look into getting it. Tormented Souls 2 got announced. I'm definitely gonna play Tormented Souls 1 and probably do a video on it. I just don't know when. I'll probably try to do it before the sequel comes out, because I've heard, and I've played like a very small amount of it, that it is a really nice like return to form for survival horror. Like pre-rendered backgrounds, fixed cameras. The character had a really questionable, the main character had a really questionable character design, but like they gave a new outfit that you can switch to in the beginning, so it's like not that big a deal. Like she looked like a Ruby character in a survival horror game. So like her first design, I believe, was this. So like you can see, I don't want a video, I want a screenshot. Okay, I guess, I mean it is the trailer, so. That's my only critique, is like that the character's main design looked really weird. Which is like really hard to just show you a picture of. You can probably see it big enough in the corner here. And then that's the front. And then they changed it so she has like jeans and a jacket. I don't know, I like the new design a lot better. The like old one just looked like a Ruby character. Mario Bros. Wonder. Necrodancer's getting some drops for music. Crypta the Necrodancer is one of my favorite indie games these days. Like, I had a lot of fun playing through it, and so I'm excited that they're doing some kind of spin-off with new gameplay and more music. GTA 6. Let's see how many views this has now. I was surprised. Like, in 2 days, this had like 150... Oh, you don't need to see that one. You need this one. 3.9... Okay. Sorry. It was like 1.5 million views in 2 days, and now it's almost got 4 million views. Like, GTA is big. I played a little bit of GTA 5 for the movement video, but I haven't really gotten into GTA since like back in the day. Yeah, here's the picture. This is technically Clock Tower 2, just FYI, so everybody sees it. But yeah, the last news was about E3 ending. After more than 2 decades of E3, each one bigger than the last, the time has come to say goodbye. I've kind of... There was a time where I wanted to go to E3 in person, just as a guest or an attendee, but as it went on, it seemed less and less worth the hassle, and like, companies started to have their own presentations throughout the year, so there's less of a need for E3. Just like being online, being able to control presentations, timing, all that. There's like less of a focus on E3, so it is sad to see something like it go, but it was like, we all kind of knew that was happening. Alright, gaming news took a little bit longer than I expected, so we're gonna move on to the part that you've all been waiting for. We're gonna move on to tier list. I just gotta find it again. I didn't realize I closed it out. try to figure out, like, maybe I'll show some footage of some of these games while I talk about it, and then I'll go back to, like, we'll have a muted tab of YouTube up so I can go back and forth. So, there are a total of 45 games that I played in 2023. Only one of them actually released in 2023. When did Soul Hackers 2 release? Is that 2022? Okay, yeah. Only one of them released in 2023. Some of these games I have replayed that I just put on here to bulk out my list and, you know, have some controversial takes. Just kidding. It's not going to be controversial. I hope. Some of these games I played for the first time. Some of them I've already played. A lot of them. That's it. So here I have. We'll try to go in order. It looks like they're in alphabetical order. If there's anything that I want to come back to, I will. And if there's anything that I might want to move around once everything is on the board, I think I will do that too. So we'll have a little round 2. I'm going to try to put them in order. Like, if they're on C tier, they're going to be in order on C tier. There's going to be like high C and low C. So, 9 Years of Shadows. Let's pull up a trailer. This, like I said before, earlier in the stream, this was a game that I found out through another YouTuber, and at that time, the consensus was it was promising, but there was a lot of glitches and bugs that actually did ruin the entire experience, which was a real shame. I wishlisted it anyway because I thought it looked really pretty. I just like the art style and I like Metroidvanias, so I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot when they're you know, maybe a couple years down the road. But immediately after release, I was following the developer logs that are on Steam, showing that they were doing monthly patches and updates to the game, and so I decided to give it a chance when I did this year, and I'm really glad I did. It's really streamlined to the point where, like, I actually don't have a lot to say about it, because there's, like, things that stick out when you play a video game. The easy things that stick out are negatives. This game is so streamlined, like the controls and everything, that, like, there's nothing to complain about. Like, the game, the way that your abilities work between the suits automatically swap between environments. Your suit abilities are based on environment. And so when you move to different environments, or if you, like, for example, if you move in water and you have the water suit and the water swimming unlocked, it'll immediately switch to that suit so that you can swim up a waterfall. If you go into an area that's like hot and you need the fire suit for, it'll switch to that suit. So it's like, it's really streamlined, it's really pretty, has a really good soundtrack, good animations, good environments. It was a blast to play through. Like, I absolutely recommend this game. So 9 Years of Shadows, I think I will put it in A tier for right now. Like, it really is something special, but it's not S tier material. Abzu, that's... Abzu was really pretty. So, spoilers for this list, I played the Pathless, and I think these guys made Journey as well. I played Journey years ago, I played the Pathless this year, and the Pathless was such an amazing game for me that I will say nothing more until we get to it on the list, that I decided to check out more of their games, and Abzu was one of them. It's like an entirely silent visual experience. Like, you're playing through a story by moving through this underwater environment and the stories being told through the environment. It was a really chill, really like interesting game. I had fun with it. It wasn't anything special. I definitely prefer this developer's other games compared to Abzu, but that's a comparison, obviously. So I would put it, I think I would put it on C tier for right now. And then we'll come back to it. Armored Core. I'm the only person that played Armored Core 1 in 2023 instead of Armored Core 6. I was between games of like stuff that I wanted to play. And so like Armored Core was a thing. Like everybody was talking about the new Armored Core. And I didn't want to play through an entirely new Armored Core game, like an entirely new game, because I was between games. So I looked up how long to beat Armored Core 1, and it was pretty short. I think it said it was like 5 or 6. No, not 6. We don't want Armored, we want the OG Armored Core. It's about 8 hours. So I decided to play it, and playing an Armored Core game without analog controls is like a crime against humanity that I wish upon nobody. And I found out recently this week watching K-Bash's video. Shout out to K-Bash, a really good YouTuber everybody should watch. He's the second person that played Armored Core 1 in 2023. And apparently they didn't go to analog control until like Armored Core 5, or like 4 or 5. They did the triggers to move the reticle for a while. Otherwise, the game does really interesting stuff. It seems like a running theme with Armored Core, but I was really surprised with how the story is told through the missions you take. Because like the first 2 missions, it's like, oh, these people are protesting like an oppressive company. Can you please like flush them out and get rid of them? And I was like, oh, like it's gonna be that kind of game. And then another one was like, people are unionizing on the bridge. You gotta get rid of them so we can move some cargo. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what like the second mission is. And then I realized that there's branching missions that are given to you by different corporations. And the story is told, and future missions are based on actions taken, the contracts taken from each company. So you can like let loose this bioweapon, and then in the next mission you can take the contract that's like, hey, like there's an outbreak, like can you clean these guys up, can you like contain the outbreak? And so I thought it was a really cool concept with minimal storytelling. So the story was really interesting. Controls were very outdated. The game looked pretty for PS1 for sure. I thought it was overall harmless. I think the worst part about it is that the final level of Armored Core 1 just like smacks you in the face, because it's this essentially jump king where you have to jump on a bunch of platforms vertically up this really long corridor. And then after that is like one of the hardest bosses in the game. And then it's a second one of the hardest bosses in the game. And then you beat the level. Like the last level was such a hard difficulty curve compared to the rest of the game. Luckily, one of those 2 final bosses killed themselves, so that made things a lot easier. And I did not want to replay Jump King in Armored Core because that is miserable. Aside from like the atrocious analog stick that wasn't a thing yet, which we can excuse, and the atrocious final level, I think Armored Core, I'm not like particularly tied to the first. I'm not like mech pilled yet. So I'm gonna put it at C tier. Like it was pretty harmless. It was fun, it was pretty harmless. We're gonna move all of these. So Anvil Tree actually recommended that I play Voice of Cards. And since I had a lot of extra time this year for like some of the traveling I was doing, I was playing Voice of Cards during that traveling. And there's 3 releases. There is Isle Dragon Roar, Forsaken Maiden, and then Beast of Burden. And essentially they're turn-based RPGs disguised as tabletop, um, disguised as a tabletop RPG. Written by, correct me if I'm wrong, written by Yoko Taro. Like, I know he's got a hand in these games, I just don't know what his role is in these games. So they were all really interesting. I really liked the presentation of traveling through the board by like moving your pawn over cards. I liked the combat mechanics of getting crystals and using those crystals to charge different attacks. Overall, it was like the end result polish of taking like an NES RPG and trying to modernize it without losing the simplicity of an NES RPG. I think they did an amazing job. I definitely think I might want to move them later, but for now I'm going to put them at B tier because they were really good experiences. I would put them, as far as like comparing them to each other, I think these two are pretty like neck and neck. I think Isle Dragon Wars is a little bit better than Forsaken Maiden. I think Dragon Wars is more consistent of a story. Maiden has higher highs, but it does have some lows. And then I was mixed on the story of Beast of Burden. They all came out, I think they came out a year at a time, like 1 year, next year this one came out, next year this one came out. So the gameplay is pretty similar. They just change how each character's abilities work to kind of change the core mechanics of each game. But they all play pretty similar. So I would put them back to back in this order. So Beyond the Labyrinth is actually, we're going to take a small tangent because Beyond the Labyrinth is actually the next YouTube video that I'm going to be releasing. I forgot to briefly talk about what I'm working on next. So the video is done. I'm kind of just putting some polish on it, doing the closed captions, the thumbnail, all that stuff. I'm going to tease the thumbnail because I kind of want like feedback on it if somebody sees this video uploaded to YouTube secondhand or any of you guys right now. I'm experimenting with thumbnails, starting with the Dark Cloud one to make them more kind of like artsy and less about like picture of something, big text. I wanted to do a clickbaity one for this first, and like, I wonder if I still have, I can pull up the old thumbnail that I had. And then I like shared it with my other content creator friends, and they're like, if the game's not primarily focused on Konami, like, I was just like doing Konami bad was my, my thing. And they're like, oh, if the game's not primarily about it and the video is a bit more serious, then you might want to like pick something more in line with what you did for Dark Cloud. I was like, yeah, you're right, I agree. So like, this is the first thing that I had was like just a big old Konami bad. Like, why was this game not localized? Oh, it's because of Konami. Let's make evil Konami. So like, it's funny, but I kind of like agree with the feedback I was given. And so I started experimenting and playing around with how my like Dark Cloud one is kind of made. So I like this. I'm curious before I put it up if anybody has any feedback, because I'm also still learning how to do like quote unquote graphic design type things. So I like how this has turned out so far. So without talking too much about the game before the video comes out, it is a turn-based RPG with a really interesting premise and really interesting combat. And that really interesting combat is something that is one of a kind and like worthy of putting it at least in A tier, maybe in S tier. So I think it's going to be an A tier because there are problems with the game. Those problems essentially being pacing. So I'm gonna leave this at A tier, and I think it deserves to be at A tier. And then we will move on from that. Look forward to a new video because it'll probably be the first weekend of January that I upload it. Did my background not load? My background didn't load. Let's fix that. There we go, that's better. I was looking on my preview and I'm like, we're missing something, aren't we? Blaster Master is in NES. Let's see if there's even a trailer anywhere for it. For the Virtual Console, 13 years ago. This was another thing I was like between games and had some extra time. Blaster Master is a cool like action shooter game that's both like top down and side scrolly, and it's a full world, so it's not like Mario where you go left or right. It's very challenging, so I abused save states when I played through this game. It was fine. I thought it was a good start. Like with NES games, there's like a wide breadth of quality, and I think this one definitely has the quality. It just needed to be a more streamlined, balancing wise experience. So there is harm done to me playing a really hard game like this, but it's NES, like it's kind of agreed on. I would say like lowest C tier or D tier. I'm gonna put it at D for now. There are sequels to Blaster Master and even modern sequels to Blaster Master. So maybe I'll be checking out future releases of Blaster Master games and be like, hey, they really like fixed the core problems with Blaster Master, just like they knew what they were doing. I want to play Crystallis. You've definitely convinced me. Yeah, that one, for those who don't know, is essentially like an action RPG, kind of like Zelda, but with more stats. And it looked really fun. It looked, I think you told me it was like a later release for NES, so it was really good looking for NES, and it was really like mechanically, like there was some depth to it for late game NES. All right, next is Control. So I was, same old story, between like major games, and I was like trying to find something like of pretty good length to play through, and Control came up because I've heard how interesting the game was, and I want to replay Alan Wake. Remedy is kind of a bridge between 1 and 2 because it's in the same universe as Alan Wake, and the DLC kind of like ties it in to the sequel. Sequel's out now. I haven't played it yet. I do really want to play it. Control itself was a really streamlined experience. I really like the setting of the oldest house. It's essentially like a government building that's in New York, but you have to be looking for it in order to find it, because this government building is all about experimenting on, discovering, and kind of concealing paranormal activity. And the oldest house itself is like a paranormal place. So it's this like really old looking federal building with like the wood panel walls and like marble floors and this really cool aesthetic with the paranormal aspects of like a constantly shifting building. And so like the setting was fantastic. I like the story and characters was fine. The combat was like really solid. I wish it experimented a little bit more with the combat, but like as far as like enemy designs go, I think they were like pretty similar. Nothing too frustrating, but just kind of like similar but with different shields and stuff. But like the entire experience was like very, very solid. I would put it B-A. I'm gonna put it at top of B for now, and then I'll see how I feel about it later. Very 70s vibe building. Yeah, wood panel like brings you there. That's like the only checkbox you need for like 70s. You need radiators and you need wood paneling. Dude, it's tough out here talking for an hour and a half. People don't know. They don't know what it's like. So Dark Cloud, I did a video on Dark Cloud. So briefly, I think it is a really cool combination of town building and dungeon exploring. I think that one aspect of it being the dungeon crawling is way more prevalent than the town building, and both aspects of the game are pretty simple. So I think the game was pretty harmless, but had really good ideas that I would love to see. There's Dark Cloud 2, and I even alluded to me possibly covering Dark Cloud 2 one day. So I want to put it in C tier. I don't know. Let's put it here for now. I don't know how to compare Abzu and Dark Cloud because they're two very different games. But this one's kind of harmless. This one is like, you can see the potential. So we'll do that for now. Doom Eternal was interesting because Doom 2016 quickly became one of my favorite FPS games that I've ever played. And I've heard mixed things about Doom Eternal. It's really weird because Doom 2016 really is like the fine wine end product of like a game like Doom. There's like no changes that you have to make to Doom. And so Doom Eternal did really weird things where between combat there was a focus on platforming and like it didn't hit, and the combat was just as good as Doom 2016 but way overly complicated. Like there were so many additional actions that did the same thing as like a simpler action in Doom 2016. And so like it's kind of like they copied their homework and tried to change it by adding things, and everything that they added to Doom Eternal did not hit the same. It just kind of got in the way. Everything that they added just got in the way. So it was more of the same. It was like really top tier. And like that's me comparing. We're comparing my favorite FPS game to a sequel to like my favorite FPS game, and it's slightly worse. The combat's still really amazing. The gameplay loop is still really amazing. It's just everything that they added kind of got in the way of a better experience. So I will put it at A, maybe high B, but I like the base gameplay of Doom. And there's a lot more content in Doom Eternal with the two expansions as well. So it's like just more of what's good. So I'm gonna put it at A tier. Eastward was such a good game, man. I know where I want to put it. I want to put it at the top of A tier. Eastward, really gorgeous pixel animation, really good soundtrack, really fun, solid gameplay of like just it's almost like a Zelda game in the way that it's like top-down combat exploration. But the thing that makes Eastward stand out is its story. I think it has some of the best story pacing. It's an example of like perfect story pacing. There's really, we gotta go back to doing some trailers. So, oh, this is probably not going to show gameplay. This is like the intro. Oh yeah, it does show it. So, Eastward knows when to have like cozy moments. It knows when to like let shit hit the fan. It's got really good characters and this real good sense of community because you only spend time in essentially 3 different towns. And the third town you spend the most time in, the time that you spend in each of these areas, they all feel like home. Like the amount of detail that they put into the characters, into the world, into the story, and their pacing with like when can you relax, when do you move forward, when is like shit hitting the fan. I think that I would love to replay this game and possibly even do a video on it. It was really good. It was really fun, like simple puzzles, simple combat, environmental puzzles, all that. Like really story focused. Definitely think this is worth your time. This was a great game. So that's gonna go at the top of A tier. El Shaddai was the biggest shakeup, I think, of this year. And I want to thank Anvil Tree for making me play it. Because it was the character designer of Dante from Devil May Cry. He like decided to direct his own game, and the character designer, when you hear that person's gonna make the game and not like the director or gameplay or like that kind of person, like not somebody involved with the mechanics, is like, hey, I want to direct a game that's like Devil May Cry, but like new. Let's do the trailer. Because this game is actually, this was originally released on Xbox, but it has modern ports, and it's even getting a physical release later down the line, which is like really cool that this game is like getting support and a remaster and all that. But it's like Diet Devil May Cry, but not in a bad way. This is must be the original Xbox. It's tough out here with these old trailers. But it's like Diet Devil May Cry, where there are combos. There's less of a focus on mechanics and more of a focus on trading weapons. It has this mechanic where your weapons will degrade, but in order to fix that, you either take time out of your combat to regen it, or you steal enemies' weapons. And there's 3 basic weapons. There's shields, there's an archer bow, and there's a projectile orb. And so you're encouraged to constantly swap between them in order to keep up the combat. And then each of the weapons are complex enough where you can get away with using one and having a good time. But if you really engage with what the game is asking you to do, it's really fun, like hot swapping different weapons, stealing weapons from enemies. The environments are gorgeous. Story was a little rushed. Enemies were definitely rushed. There is not a lot of enemy variety. You're gonna have to like the basic combat, and you're gonna have to eventually, if you want more out of the game, constantly switch weapons. Because like it's definitely feels lighter when compared to like the goats. But it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it surprised me for a reason, because it was like a really fun, really good game. The environments, which you can't properly see in this like 240p, sorry, 360p. I shouldn't be talking shit. It's 360p. But there is HD versions of this out on Steam and on Switch, at least. I don't know if it's on PlayStation or Xbox, but like, let me pull up. I think it's the second level. I think it might be this one. Shouts out to Game Front. It's not level 2. Do part 3. The second world. We're just gonna go through the playlist. You gotta see what I see. You gotta see the vision. I think it is part 5. Yeah. The environment here is like so breathtaking. Like this world is so colorful and so detailed. And all of the game's environments are like this. They're all like so full of life, you know? So like alien but full of life. It's so cool. It's like a painting. They're all paintings. So Elephant Eye, I want to put it at A tier. I think I might be hyping it up a little too much, but I think it's A tier. I think like an average person expecting Devil May Cry would be really disappointed with the simpler combat and with like the simple, like the lack of enemy variety. But I think it's fun. I think it's A tier. What's up, Dukels? Yeah, so like, everybody rejoice. El Shaddai is A tier. Final Fantasy Adventure, my only regret is finding out after I beat the game that there's a remake. I think it's called Sword of Mana on Game Boy Advance. Anvil Tree's the expert, probably, hopefully. But I'm sad that I didn't play the remake, and I'm sad that the remake isn't even on the Secret of Mana collection, because that's how I played Final Fantasy Adventure. But I got some really good perspective, because for a Game Boy game, like just Game Boy, not Game Boy Color, not Game Boy Advance, Final Fantasy Adventure is a really fully fleshed out game. was really surprised with just how well made Final Fantasy Adventure is. And like how long it is too, for being on the Game Boy. It's essentially action RPG. Like, I'll make the comparison again. It feels like Zelda, but with like RPG mechanics, equipment, spells, all that kind of stuff. I enjoyed my time playing with it. I would say C. I would put it higher just because of how, what's the word? Because of like how much it tried to do on a Game Boy handheld console. But like at a certain point I gotta be objective and see what it's up against. And like, am I mech pilled or am I not mech pilled is like the question. It's hard to compare games that are like so different from one another. I'll put it at the end here, but it's sad to put it at C tier. Like, I think it deserves, it's ambitious, that's the word. I think it's pretty ambitious for being Game Boy. Oh, hell yeah, brother. F-Zero 99. That one is interesting. Like, man, would I love more F-Zero games, especially a remake to F-Zero GX and AX. Something that I'll never get and that I have to live with. So when Nintendo said, we're gonna make a new F-Zero game, but it's gonna be a battle royale game, and it's gonna be like a remake kind of the SNES one. I was like, I'll give it a try, you know, like I'm paying for the family plan for Nintendo Online, so like I have nothing to lose. Surprisingly, F-Zero 99 and like SNES F-Zero is really well made for the battle royale genre. Because it's one of those games that, like, whether you're playing the SNES one, the N64 one, the GameCube one, part of the levels are about getting first place. Part of the levels are about just making it to the finish line. And the risk reward with how boosting takes away from your health. I think that, like, a combination of all that, plus being able to interact and attack with, like, other racers, it's really well suited for F-Zero. And F-Zero's always had really high racer counts. I can't think offhand of how much like F-Zero X and GX had, but they always have like a really large amount of players, and having them all be online, all be real time and all be online, I think they did a really good job with F-Zero 99. I would probably put it B tier, because I think it's not B tier material. It's like simple fun though. Again, it's so hard. I'll leave it at B tier for now, and then we'll like go back through. Gravity Rush 1 and 2, probably one of the coolest games that I played this year. Gravity Rush feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, but with the like complexity, characters, world design, gameplay, like really cool gravity movement mechanics. I actually played them for the movement video because I'd never played Gravity Rush and like I've always wanted to. So I ended up buying both games and playing through them, and I'm really glad I did because I think they're going to be the first S tier on this tier list. I think both of them are. I'm not sure how I'd rank them. Which one would be? I feel like Gravity Rush 2 was a smidge better than 1. But they're both, yeah, because like 2 has a lot more going for it. It's got a bigger world. It's even got the first world in it. So there's like just more to do in Gravity Rush 2. It's a better end result polish of what they went with Gravity Rush 1. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't have more to say from that. I think that, like, there's so much life in Gravity Rush 1 and 2. Like, they feel like such care went into crafting these characters in this world that there's nothing else like it. And for that, I'm going to give it an S tier. How Fish is made is cool. It's actually a free Steam. It's on Steam and it's free. It's this really short philosophical game about choice and how like some things have choice and some things don't have choice, and how important making choices are. It was really cool. Yeah, we actually, I think I made Anvil Tree play it. I think it was after I had already played it once. But it was really cool. I thought it was a really cool short experience that is like unlike anything else. It's got this like old school, like, I think it went for like a PS1 filter on it, where it's got really like simple graphics with like a blocky filter over it. I would probably put it lowest A tier because it's very short, but it's very impactful. I thought it was like a really cool game. But we gotta go back to trailers because I haven't been doing trailers. This next is Later Alligator. And I found out one of the animators that I watch on YouTube actually did the animations for Later Alligator. I want to like fact check myself while this trailer is playing. It was fun. Later Alligator was... It reminded me of the old days playing point-and-click games like Putt-Putt and Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish, like all of those kind of games. It reminded me of that, but like every character interaction was like there's a mini game attached to it, so like there's a lot to do, and it's cool. I still want to look up because like everything is hand animated. That's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah, like Day of the Tentacle too. I want to play a lot of those LucasArts point and clicks because like I haven't played a lot of point and click games. So the cleanup animation was done by Worthy Kids, which has really well done. Like one of my favorite animations from we'll do a side tangent here and then we'll come back to if you haven't seen, and he's very popular now, almost 1 million subs, but Big Top Burger, really love, there's season 1 and season 2, which I think is a total of 30 minutes. Jason and Friends was my first animation I saw from Worthy Kids, but like you can see I've watched a lot of them. They're all really good animations. Yeah, Big Top Burger's great. I love Big Top Burger. So this, like I said before, this has this really cool hand-animated style to it. This really childlike point-and-click adventure, like just like fun little mini... Like, another thing it reminds me of is just like going online and playing like kids' computer games on websites. It's like a really nostalgic experience playing Later Alligator. I thought it was really fun. Later Alligator... probably be... I will get to Somnium Files, I promise. Look, I've been going through the, you can see Zero Time Dilemmas right here. I've been going through the Nonary games for some time now, and this is the last of the Nonary games. And you know what's after the Nonary games, made by the person who made the Nonary games? AI Somnium Files. So... through process of doing them in order, we're there. Can't get closer than there. Later Alligator's hard to rank. I'd probably put it at B tier. It was fun. It was chill. It was short. It was relaxing. It was fun. It was a good game. I can't put it at S tier. You're robbed. It just comes down to personal taste. I thought it was a really good game, but I can't put it above the GOATs. I can't put it above El Shaddai. I can't put it above Doom Eternal. I can't put it above all these games. Because it's just not, like, I didn't get a lot out of it, you know? Alright, I made enemies today. Look, we're even. Look, it's H here. Look. Look, it's A tier. Oh, look, it's S tier now. Hold on. We'll compromise, okay? We'll barter. YouTube. Let's go, YouTube. Loop Hero. Loop Hero was cool. I think that that's a game that is worthy of me making at least a YouTube short on. Okay, fellas, come on, we gotta... I know, I made a mistake putting this on here. I replayed it for the movement video, because I used some footage from Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. But I ended up just playing through all of Sonic Adventure 2, so I was like, you know, I'll put it on the list again, and we'll, like, see how I feel about it today. So, Loop Hero is a really cool game. It is a reverse, I call it a reverse tower defense game. If you've ever played Bloons Tower Defense, there's obstacles coming at you, and you need to put defensive structures on the little grid. In Loop Hero, you put obstacles in front of you for the hero to kill in order to get experience. So it was this really cool idea of taking a concept and making something unique out of it. And Anvil Tree, I think you would really like this game too, because the premise, that the story that kind of justifies this kind of gameplay is really, like, it fits perfectly, and it's very, like, bleak. It reminds me of how you described Morkborg to me. And, like, honestly, the soundtrack is good too. The soundtrack would make a good soundtrack to, like, some tabletop stuff you do. I had a lot of fun with it. I have a hard time enjoying roguelike games. There are a couple problems I have with this game. The premise is so interesting, I would love to see a sequel, like, improve upon the basic gameplay loop. So, essentially, let's take a screenshot here. It's Loop Hero. You're going on a loop. You're going to start from... Where's the starting camp? You start from the starting camp, you go all the way around, you fight enemies, you level up. You're placing the obstacles using these cards at the bottom. So, you need to place enough obstacles on the map to level up your hero, because with each loop, enemies get stronger. You need to get as much experience as you can without putting too much to kill you. So there's this really cool self-regulating balance. And on top of that, you're picking one of 3 classes, so you get different choices between classes and perks for each class. You get different cards that you can activate and deactivate. And you can go back to camp and level up your camp to get better base stats, better advantages during your runs. So my preferred roguelike experience is one that the only thing stopping you from booting up the game the first time and beating it is your knowledge of the game and your skill of the game. And so, for example, Hades, for example, Crypt of the Necrodancer, this is not one of those games. This is one that you have to grind the game out for in order to rank up your camp, in order to get better things to finish the game. But I think the structure of the game demands that, and it's not a negative, it's just a preference. So you're unlocking cards, you're unlocking classes, and these cards interact with each other in really interesting ways. So one example, and this is what I want to make a YouTube short on if I ever get around to it, is, for example, you can place a village on the map right here. The village heals you when you pass through it. You can choose to put a vampire mansion next to it, and the relation between the two, the vampire turns all of the people into zombies. Now you have enemies instead of healing here. However, if you go through 3 successful loops with zombies, they build up the village, and it becomes just a bigger heal than the village would give you on its own. There's things like force needing to be placed so that you can place deadwood next to it, so that the deadwood kills enemies faster. So there's a really interesting mesh of cards, how they interact with each other, and variety in classes and camp upgrades and stuff like that. My problem is that because you need to keep playing the game in order to level up and get stronger to actually be able to, like, stat-wise beat these bosses, it takes a while, and it takes a lot of repetitive actions. There's a lot of starting a new game and then having the first few loops just you placing groves, placing rocks, placing, I actually don't know what these are. I think that's a maze. I never used the maze during my playthrough. But it's a lot of repetitive actions of placing the same things in the same places that it got really tiresome. If the game's pacing was a lot faster and you had to do less of that over and over, the game would be shorter, but the game would be more fun in my opinion. And there's stuff after you beat the final boss for reasons to keep playing the game because it's a roguelike game. So I wish they would have paced the first, there's only 4 levels in the game. I wish they paced the first 4 levels better so that, like, if you just wanted to play from start to end, you could do it easier by doing just like less repeated actions, leveling up faster, building things faster. There's fun risk reward by if you die, you lose all but 30% of your collected resources. If you make it to the camp, you can leave with all of it. So there's a cool risk. It's like, oh, can I do one more loop or should I call it here? Or like, should I press my luck and like I'll end up losing most of my gear if I die, but that's okay. And then there's just the hype of like the soundtrack is really good, like Chuck commented on. There's a really cool, so once you, in order to get to the boss, let's do a thing here. So like the soundtrack is really good. There's a moment when you build enough just everything where you cross that line and the boss spawns. It replaces your camp. So you have to choose to either go back to camp or fight the boss. There is nothing more like, there's nothing that activates my neurons more than listening to a song like this and then like unlocking the boss spawning and then the music changing to this. Because the music is like really good. And so it gets you like really hype in order to like fight these boss encounters, and the game's hard too. Like I said, you need to grind a lot in order to get stats. So you're always in this uphill battle. And thematically, I actually didn't explain the like thematic part of it. The world is kind of wiped away into nothingness, including memories, and you're one of the last things left that's like still kicking. And so with every loop, you're rebuilding the world, and if you die, it just gets wiped again. So you're rebuilding the world, and you're rebuilding the camp, and trying to figure out why all of this, like, why everything's trying to return to nothingness. And I like, the coolest part is, like, after you beat the game, so it's, like, the most spoilers, so I have to stop there. But I love the vibe of the game, I love the ideas for the game, but I want to see a sequel where they, like, kind of make the game more streamlined, make like where you don't have to repeat so many of the most basic actions. So I have a lot to say about this game. I could absolutely do a review on it sometime, but I have a lot to say about it, but I don't think it was like fun for me all the way through. It was like, it was hard, but it was fun. So needless to say, Loop Hero has a lot of missed potential. I want to put it at B tier. I would honestly, I think the unique idea alone puts it at the top of B tier. I think the idea of a reverse tower defense game is something I've never seen before, and I think they knocked it out of the park with like the music, the visuals, the story, the context of why you're playing a roguelike Loop Hero. I think they knocked it out of the park. It's not always for me at every moment, but I think it deserves a lot of praise, and I would play a sequel if they worked on it. There have been a lot of good 3D platformers released lately that are like really small in scope, but like really well made. Lunestis is definitely one of them. Pseudo Regalia is another one that I want to play. And then there's this game, Corn Kids, that's like an N64 inspired platformer. But I decided to play Lunestis. One, for my movement video, because I've seen clips of this game on Twitter, so I ended up following the maker of the game. And just like really like the vibe of the game. And it looks like there's new stuff too. No, must not be new. They're still updating the game. I think the new character has not been released yet, but there's a new character. Essentially, this is a small scope levels, level by level, get to the end platformer with really simple. So like Mario's one of the GOATs, right? Mario's got really good movement in terms of like jumping, air, drift, very basic mechanics that can be manipulated in a lot of ways, like how Cappy in Super Mario Odyssey, you can throw him and then you'll like linger in the air for a little bit. You can dive into the hat, you'll bounce again. Even Super Mario Galaxy, the spin attack keeps you in the air, gives you a little bit more extra height. And so you're able to combine that with additional actions like wall kicking. So like triple jump into wall kick into attack spin, get you up a platform. Lunestis follows suit with really linear level design, but really good feeling, good flowing movement. And it has a similar spin attack that like keeps you in the air longer. And it's just got really colorful level design, really colorful, really good music. Both the music and the visuals are really nice. And it's just like a really nice small scale passion. It'll take you maybe 3 hours to play through just all the levels. And then if you want to complete the game and get the bonus ending, then you can go back and replay levels. So like, it's a really solid experience through and through. Lunestis, I think, has got to be A tier. I had a lot of fun with it. And again, it's one of those short experiences where there's zero, like, negative things. Like, it's short, it's sweet, it's Lunestis. On to Super Mario Wonder. It's the only game that I played in the year 2023. I've played the new Super Mario Brothers games year after year, and they're fun, but like they're Mario, right? Like there's not much to it. I think hearing that this game, they didn't really have a schedule to keep, it allowed them to have really cool ideas with the Wonder Fruit, with the new art direction. It's still Mario, but it's still 2D Mario, but it has such a unique identity, taking like standard Mario levels and like just doing weird things with them. And so like it was shorter than I would have thought, considering like a lot of Mario games these days have very have pretty similar but in-depth end games. Like I feel like there was a new Super Mario Brothers game in the past to do like another 8 additional worlds that are just harder versions of existing worlds. Through Super Mario 3D World absolutely had one of those because I ended up playing through a lot of the like end game content for that. Super Mario Brothers Wonder has its 8 worlds. It has secret entrances to the special world, in which case you do 2 kind of like secret final levels. And it doesn't take nearly as long, but that's fine when the quality of this game is just so well made. Like every level there's some new wacky thing happening. The art direction is like, it's when you look at new Super Mario Brothers compared to this game, like it's night and day. Like you kind of forget just how bland the new Super Mario Brothers games looked when you look at like how much they put into the character animations for this game. So I had a blast with it. 100% in Super Mario World and absolutely adore it. Yeah, that's my favorite Mario game. It used to be Super Mario World until 3D World took the reins. So, I mean, for my tastes, I'm happy putting it at high B tier. We'll stick the Nintendo games together. Like, you don't want them to be too lonely, right? Like, we being me had a better time with these games than Mario Wonder. Like, fine, yeah, I'll take it. Inside a Bag of Milk and Outside a Bag of Milk are two very interesting, hard games to describe. I think these games... Favorite's actually Sunshine? I think so too. As far as like the more traditional ones go, I ended up liking Sunshine the most. It's got a very coherent world to it. And I think that like being able to see these areas change and being able to see them from like other locations on the map, I think they did a really cool job with Sunshine. So Milk Inside a Bag of Milk is the first game. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long. It's very short. The sequel, Outside a Bag of Milk, I think is about 1 to 2 hours. I think they do a really good job, like, describing, not even describing, it's visualizing trauma. This character has experienced trauma in the past, and because so hasn't left the house. And so it's about this girl leaving her house for the first time in a long time, picking up milk and taking it home, and how it crafts this horror experience, kind of visualizing what somebody might think and see through the lens of somebody who is like not mentally okay. And that comes with a lot of trigger warnings because of how it's kind of exploring trauma and visualizing it. But I think the first game and even the second game do a really good job describing that for the short and simple experiences that they are. Milk. Is this both trailers? What's this one? So this is showing them both. There's a little bit more production and length in the sequel, and it explores the character a lot more, and it spends time in her room and like exploring events that happen to her. I ended up liking the first game a little bit more because I think of how I think it did a good job being creepier, whereas the second game put more focus on the character. And I think they're both really good expressions of trauma, and they're both very heavy with the subject matter. I don't have too much to add to that. If you want to play a really heavy horror game that's really short, I think that these are really good experiences to look into. Content warnings with those though. I think they go B tier. I'm throwing so much shade to Later Alligator. It was fun. It was good. It was great even. Like C tier for me is like harmless. Like there was nothing notably good. There was nothing notably bad. B tier is like, hey, there's notably good things about this game. So that's good, right? Near Replicant. Near Replicant. Near Replicant. So, Nier Automata I played, and it quickly became like one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. And so, eventually, the time would come that I would want to play Replicant. And so, I don't even think that this remake was out at the time when I played Automata, because this remake is from a couple years ago. And the framework of Nier Replicant is based off of a PS3 360 game, and they tried to bring this one more in line with Automata's gameplay while still keeping the more grounded RPG elements. I think Automata focuses a lot more into action, which I prefer. And Replicant focuses more on RPG elements in, like, if we're trying to like compare the combat. Replicant involved with Yoko Taro, so it's obviously going to be like a fantastic game. It's also going to be really introspective and really unique. I've never played the original Replicant, but I appreciated just how far this one kind of like just how much work they put into this version of the game. There were a lot. I'm glad I'm watching this trailer because it reminds me that there were a lot of kind of experimenting with gameplay styles with each different arc of the game. And I've told you, Infiltree, I didn't really like when the game tried to do something new. Like the Emil section, the survival horror section, didn't really land well for me. The ocean or the sand ocean section, the sand temple section, where they like limited your actions, I didn't really like. The top down like Hades section, I was like, I didn't like when they tried to experiment, but like it probably was more impactful in the original release than like today. So I always admire the ambition. Like I'm all bringing up all of the like nitpicks that I have with the game first, because like aside from that, it's such a good experience. I had such a blast playing Replicant. The other thing too was that in order to get all of the endings, you need to replay parts of the game multiple times. And I would have stopped at making them replay it twice, but you end up having to replay it 3 times in order to get the final ending. So like that kind of was a pace breaker too. But story, characters, phenomenal. The world, Yoko Taro's brain is like wonderful. It's great. Emil, Kaine, even like Nier are really interesting characters. Obviously, like with Yoko Taro, there's a reveal in part of the story, and like that reveal plus like the ending reveal, it's like a really interesting. It's a really like the party members in Nier Replicant are like misfits, like a found family of misfits, and I think they do a really good job exploring these characters, making them likable, and spending time with each one. By the end of the game, like, you know what happened to each of these characters, why they turned out the way they are, and like I said, you get this like really nice like found family kind of messaging with the game that it's so good. I don't know. I have a hard time praising games. Like, it's easier to talk about like nitpicks and stuff. Really love the experimentation and repetition with the new content and side quests. Really endeared me to the world and characters. Yeah, you were talking about how the replay, the forced replays kind of give you more time to sit in the world, and I think that makes sense. Because it is a really good world. It's really good characters. Like, it's not a bad thing to give you reasons to spend more time with them. And each time you replay, you get drip-fed new angles for each character, like new background. Like the second time that you replay part of the game, you're spending it like learning about Kaine. And so while the actions that you're doing are repetitive, you're spending more time in the world, and you're learning more things about the character while you play through it. So it's not without reason. So I'm trying to, so like, I want to put it at S tier. I'm trying to think of a reason, like, why would I put it at A tier? And like, my only reason for me not wanting to put it at A tier is it's not as good as like Nier Automata. And that's such a like useless thing to say, because like Nier Automata's top 5 game of all time. A game can still be not as good as Automata and still be S tier. The disclaimer, as you mentioned too, is it's like really niche. So like my disclaimer would be like, if you want to get into this series, I would absolutely recommend you play Automata first. And if you come away loving Automata, and you understand the quirks of Yoko Taro and the game design that comes with games developed by Yoko Taro, then you know what to expect going into Replicant, and you get a far richer experience doing so. Would you say, yeah, I feel like you would agree with that. One shot. Let's pull up specifically. So I was on a trip this year, and One Shot was one of those games where it's like, I want to play a game that won't take me too long, that like I know people have like said good things about in the past. And One Shot was one of the games that I went with. It was this really interesting, so like the first thing that was interesting is how it uses the PC. It uses your computer as a medium to tell a story. And it'll use the game window, it'll use text boxes found within the game's files. It'll use all of that stuff for its puzzles, so that you have to leave the game in order to solve puzzles and like navigate your desktop in order to solve the puzzles. And so I played this on Switch, and I was worried that not everything would translate one-to-one. What? So, I played the Switch version of One Shot, which uses, obviously, not a computer. So the way that they solve that problem is when you boot up One Shot, you're essentially booting up into a PC interface. You can launch the game in that interface, and you can even window mode the game One Shot and do all of the things that you would be able to do on PC within the Switch computer. And so I thought it was a really good, obviously it's not one-to-one with the PC because you're not using the same hardware, but I thought it was really cool that the game was accessible to people on the Switch in a format that gets the same message across. Like, it doesn't get lost in translation, moving things from the PC to the Switch. The game itself is cool. It was this really creative story about, you know, this cat, not a cat, about this person kind of like whisked away into another world and communicating with the player who's the god of the world. And so like you're navigating this world, meeting really cool characters and trying to find a way out for this person. And it was cool, it was heartwarming. It was, and because it uses the PC as a medium, it kind of like tries to break the fourth wall a few times, and it makes this really cool dialogue with the player. A couple years ago, maybe last year, whenever I did my The Less You Know The Better video, I kind of was getting recommendations from people about games that do The Less You Know The Better as it's kind of like as its like selling point. And I was told that One Shot was one of those games, and I'm glad that I got to play it because it does feel like one of those games. And it's got to be pretty old too. I have to see when it originally came out. Based on a free version made in 2014. The Steam version released in 2016. So it was a nice kind of look back at an early indie title. I feel like it was worth playing. And like it's weird how my perspective of like older games is shifting as like obviously as time moves on. Because one of the OG indie games, I'm thinking of how it looks, but I'm not thinking of the name. Cave Story. Cave Story released around 2004, so that's still a big time gap. But like One Shot reminds me of a game, like a staple game like Cave Story that kind of like is a pillar of doing something unique with indie games. So I would probably put it here. It has really cool, it's a really interesting, cool game. It didn't leave a lasting impression on me, but I'm glad I played it, and Again, I think the coolest thing I took away from it was being able to play the Switch version and kind of comparing it to the PC version. And just knowing that like a comparable version of the game exists on console now. Panzer Dragoon Remake came out a little while ago now, and I was looking for something short to play on stream. We actually streamed this game, and I played it because it's about an hour and a half long. It's really short. It was originally a Sega Saturn game, and they remade it from the ground up on modern consoles. And I haven't spent a lot of time with the Saturn's library, so I thought it was a good time to play like a fun short staple of the Saturn. And so the remake is, you know, rail shooter. You can look at multiple different angles. That's kind of the draw for this game at the time of its release was just the presentation, the graphics, and kind of like making an interesting world, because Panzer Dragoon gets a lot of sequels, and even like one of the most expensive secondhand games of all time, Panzer Dragoon Saga, takes the world and makes a full RPG story out of it. So it's cool playing like a space shooter, seeing a fresh coat of paint on a game that's original selling point was its visuals. Yeah, I want to play Saga at some point too. Some people say it's as good as it is like entitled to be with that price tag. Some people say it's like okay, so I would like to play through it and see. It's got to be promising how they like combine gameplay like this with an RPG. For me, Panzer Dragoon was very average, very harmless. It's gonna go at the bottom of C tier. I was looking at, this was around the time where I like renewed my subscription to Nintendo Online, and I was just like looking at the Super Nintendo games. I played half of this game not knowing that there was a run button. Let me see if there's even a trailer for it. I might have to pull up somebody's gameplay, because there's gonna be multiple games on here. Oops. Probably a long play. Yeah, shout out to World of Long Play. So it's a Super Nintendo action game, Japan only, and I played through it, and I didn't know you could play as a different character. I played as a ninja. I'm not gonna have a lot to say about this. I know it's like a very obscure pick, but it was surprisingly well balanced. Like, it was fun to play through. And again, I didn't know that there was a run button, so I was like, this game is like really hard to move around in, but once you know that there's a run button, the game just makes so much more sense. So it's fun. I like actually recommend this as like a one day like fun old Super Nintendo game. It's worth your time. It's not super challenging. Like, the other thing on this list was Blaster Master. That game was like insanely unfair and like unforgiving. This game is actually like pretty relaxing to play through up until like the final boss. So me saying that it's very solid, it's at least getting C tier. Yeah, it's C tier. C tier. It's good. It's good. It's fine. I would never think about it after today, but it's fine. Pulse Man was the same thing. That same exact scenario where I was looking for games to play. Pulse Man is on the Genesis Nintendo Online. It was made by Game Freak before they made Pokemon. We don't need all that. Yeah, I might have to do a long play also. Yeah, World of Long Plays played this 14 years ago. This is gonna be like an exact repeat. I'm glad it's next to Psycho Dream. I'm glad they both start with P. It's an action game made by Game Freak before they made Pokemon. It's got really cool movement. Like the character can hopefully do it in this video where you can kind of like a Sparkster? I think it was called Sparkster. How you can like use your energy to bounce on walls. And so you're doing more complicated platforming. And they even have like level gimmicks that use this. So like this is one of your forms that you interact with walls and kind of rails with. And it's very visually pleasing for, you know, Genesis. It's satisfying, it's fun, it's not too hard. It's going right next to Psycho Dream, but it was fun. I'm glad I played it. Yeah, it's cool. Like the visuals give like Mega Man vibes too. Like you can see the intro there. It was never brought to the West. If this was released so long ago, it must be either a fan translation. You don't need an actual translation to play through this game. There's not a lot of text. But you can see it's got like inspired by Astro Boy or like Mega Man or something like that. It's going above Psycho Dream though, that's for sure. Sayonara Wild Hearts. This is a cool game, and it's actually going to factor into a future video that I do. Yeah, Penny's Big Breakaway is made by the people who did Sonic Mania. So I'm excited to see them do like a 3D game. Wild Hearts... Wild Hearts is too short, but the thing is, in most cases, music is used to enhance a game experience. And Sayonara Wild Hearts, I feel, is one of those games that's music first and uses gameplay to enhance the music. And I think that's a really cool genre of games that I'm going to explore in a video next year. Essentially, it's like an album's worth of music, which takes you an hour to beat Sayonara Wild Hearts, but they give you this really cool high score based adventure. They give you something to do that enhances the experience of listening to the music. I think it is A or B tier. I put it in the same boat as Loop Hero, where I think they're very ambitious, but I'd like to see more. But it's just like, you get what you get. The ambition doesn't lead to like a lasting... It leads to me wanting more, I guess. I'm gonna put it at high B tier. Zodiac puzzles? Is that in Sayonara Wild Hearts? So when I played through the game, I just did the main story. I didn't look for any of the additional content. So if they have extra modes that kind of like lengthen the game, then that's cool. Hellblade. Everything about this game is S tier, except the puzzles. There's visual puzzles in this game that I'm getting ahead of myself. Hellbald. So Hellblade is really cool. It features a main character that's dealing with psychosis and has really interesting gameplay and story implications. One of them being every time you die, there's rot that's growing on your arm. You can see on Senua's right arm. And if Senua dies enough, if that rot reaches her head, then you get a game over. Or, well, I think it says, like, it might say it in this trailer. I talked about it in my video, The Less You Know The Better, because essentially the game uses psychosis to strengthen the gameplay. And it does really cool things for combat. It does really cool thing for Senua's character. Everything is great, except one of the qualities of psychosis is trying to make patterns out of things that might not necessarily have patterns, like trying to link a reason to why things are the way they are, when that's like a very hard task to do for any person, psychosis or not. And so part of the gameplay is finding patterns or finding symbols in the environment in order to like find a path forward. And that is a really cool concept. It does not carry through an entire full game experience. The combat's great, the combat's really fun. Everything that you do in the downtime, that's not just exploring a really detailed, visually stunning environment, is walking around those environments trying to find symbols by like standing in a very specific spot to see like trees make like a little spear symbol. And like the game is so good otherwise that like I can kind of put up with it. I want to put it on S tier despite having like one negative thing to say. I might want to put it above near, but we'll get there when we get there. I think I would put it at S tier despite my complaints with the puzzles. I had such a good time with this game, and like I can't even gush about all of the small details because like they are all really small details that add into this really satisfying adventure. Just to give you one of the bosses is, I actually clipped it. I wonder if I can find it on my Discord. I posted it a while ago, but we'll try to dig it up. Actually, no, because like it could be considered as spoilers. It's mostly just visuals, but it just has really good visuals that like have such an oppressive like atmosphere to it. I'll leave it at that. Play Hellblade, it's really good. Sin and Punishment, I played on the Virtual Console. That's an N64 game. That's another kind of like rail shooter. Playing through this game and like experiencing the story made me think I was missing something. I was like, did this game have like a manga, book, or like anime tie-in to some story that I know nothing about? Because it starts like right into some like major events, and it's got like you should know these characters, you should know what they're doing, you should know their relationships to each other. But I don't know any of that stuff. It was like really hard to follow the story, but it had really fun, like it's both a side-scrolling and like front-facing shoot 'em up, but you can physically control your character. And so you can make them do side-scrolling platforming, you can make them dodge obstacles, while like actually walking into the environments at your own pace. So like that's the other thing, it's a lot of it is not determined by the game, a lot of it is like you running forward and progressing the story. And then there's situations like this where you're like, you need to get rid of the enemies before you can move on. So it's got this really like tight, like the boss encounters too, like there's a lot going for it. That's really cool. I don't have a lot to say about it other than that. I think it goes B tier. Where on B tier? It's just fun. It's just a good time. I'll put it here. Put it there. Oof. You guys ready for our first negative game? So I played Sonic Forces this year, pretty recently in fact. I'm a big fan of the boost formula. Daytime levels in Sonic Unleashed are great. Sonic Colors levels are great. They have a bigger focus on 2D sections, which kind of like is not the most fun part, but they're still really good levels. Sonic Generation is the GOAT of the boost formula. Some of the best level design, like acting and reacting and going fast, and like it's just so well designed. After we've experimented with those 3 boost formula games, we as in Sega try to do Sonic Forces. We try to bring back classic Sonic in a story that doesn't make any sense to have him there. We have a creative character that has no reason to be there. We have a story that is just so devoid of anything. It just happens. You have level design that is so bland, boring, and uninvolved, wearing the skin of better games like Sonic Generations and Sonic Mania, but doing it absolutely atrociously. You have boring music for a Sonic game. Every part of this game baffles me that it is as bad as it is. So with that, we have our first E tier. Thank you and good night. Soul Hackers 2. This I did a video on. This was a really satisfying experience. It felt low budget in the fact that the environments... Thank you for watching, Chuck. Appreciate you. glad we're on the same page. Soul Hackers 2 it's unfortunate to have to compare it to games like Persona 5 that have had the longest dev cycle and like the longest ability to be the best games they can possibly be. Soul Hackers sits in the shadow of a game like Persona 5, but is just as fun with its combat and its characters and its story. The thing that holds it back the most, which I talked about in the video, is there's just a lot of bland environments and there's a lot of repeated environments. And so it doesn't feel like you're doing a whole lot during the story because you're seeing a lot of the same sights. And so I loved it. I think it's underrated, but it does have some clear problems with its scope. Despite that, I think I would put it at A tier. I think I would put it... Just because I'm a fan of RPGs, I'll put it here, above those 2 that are not RPGs. Splatterhouse. This was a fun one. Splatterhouse. So, I've always wanted to play the TurboGrafx Splatterhouse. Splatterhouse is a series that has gone back from TurboGrafx, which, like, very old. And those games in that console are very expensive. Now, if you want to play Splatterhouse 1, 2, and 3, there's one more option. You can play Splatterhouse Reboot for the Xbox 360. If you finish the story, you unlock Splatterhouse 1, 2, and 3. So, I played Splatterhouse 360. That's cool that you were able to see an old school cartridge, because I've never seen one of these games in the wild. Splatterhouse Reboot is a very edgy beat-em-up game, and it's actually really fun. I think the worst thing about this game today is that it's not... You can't play it on the Series X or the Xbox One. There's no backwards compatibility. Which sucks because this game has really bad frame rate issues. It has really awful frame rate. It is a very simple, but very fun beat 'em up. And the story is actually funny. Like, it's bad funny. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like Adult Swim funny. Like the bad kind of Adult Swim. It's like edgy and bloody. But it's so fun. I would play this, I would recommend this game if that sounds like something you're interested in. And I would recommend this game even more if they do a backwards compatibility where they fix the frame rate issues. Because they've done that with games like Lost Odyssey and Sonic Unleashed. They've had backwards compatibility with newer Xbox consoles. and they fixed the frame rate and performance on those versions of the game. I would never expect there to be a remaster of this game, but if we ever live in that timeline, this game's worth a shot. It's fun. I like it. That's another... Next to El Shaddai, this game is another like surprise hit for me. I would put it... Now I'm just being disrespectful. I want to put it like high B tier. Put it there. I'm being me. I'm just being wacky. I'm just being me, okay? Sonic Adventure 2. Too bad Chuck had to leave. He's not here to see this. I've had my... So I had to replay Sonic Adventure 2 for the movement in games video. I needed some footage. And it's Sonic Adventure 2. I love Sonic Adventure 2. So I played through the whole thing when I didn't really have to. I had a blast. I've had my edgy, like, oh, Sonic Adventure 2 is not as good as everybody says. You know, like the Eggman levels and the Tails levels aren't that great. Like the Chaos Emerald levels or some people say. I used to be that guy. I'm not proud of being that guy. Sonic Adventure 2 is a good video game. If we get into the weeds here, Sonic Adventure 2, obviously the Sonic and Shadow levels are GOAT. Obviously the story is peak Sonic Adventure 2. The peak is peak Sonic story. The Knuckles and Rouge levels are great. I love them. I wish the only thing that I think in Sonic Adventure 2 they made it so that all three don't activate at the same time. So it's a little tedious, like going here to get one Chaos Emerald when you just walk past the other. But you didn't know it because the radar wasn't going. Weird change for a sequel. Those levels were still fun nonetheless. Eggman and Tails levels, I agree I could pass on, but they're still fun. I think if you take the beeping out of those levels, they would be even better. Then there's the Chow Garden. We all love the Chow Garden. Sonic Adventure 2, it's S tier. Like, it is. We'll put it above Hellblade. I think Sonic Adventure 2 is still S tier. I think despite its flaws, it's still peak Sonic. And I shouldn't have to apologize or try to be contrarian about it anymore, you know? I gotta live my best life. Mic drop. So Stray. Stray is so good. I played a lot of good games this year. How do I say stuff about Stray? I think they did a lot of cool stuff making you play as a cat. In my movement in games video, I talked about how... Yeah. In my movement in games video, I talked about how you have to think about level design differently than if you're playing a human character than if you're playing as a cat. And Stray does a lot of cool stuff, designing levels that look like they're made for humans, like buildings, doors, vents, grates, all that. But by playing as a cat, you approach them differently. So not only is it cool gameplay-wise, it's cool story-wise. The world is cool, inhabited by robots pretending to be humans. You're trying to figure out why. You're trying to figure out how things got to where they are, where the humans are. You meet this AI robot. It's such a cool experience. Honestly, I think I would put Stray. Stray is as good as people say it is. I think it's an S tier game. It's really relaxed. It's really fun. It's really good. The Pathless is one of the greatest games of all time. I was surprised with how much I like The Pathless. I describe The Pathless as Breath of the Wild meets Shadow of the Colossus. It is a very streamlined open world game. It is an open world game for people who don't like open world games because the way that they do progression is big open world. So like Not even big. Medium-sized open world, collect things, beat a boss, move up into the world, into another tier, into an entirely separate open world, medium-sized open world, collect things, beat the boss, repeat. That is the main gameplay loop of the Pathless. It's very low-key, it's very exploration-focused. It's got really fun movement. The worlds are never too big. And it's fun to solve like environmental puzzles, to find collectibles, to navigate the world. The game is gorgeous. The gameplay and the combat is streamlined. I don't think there's any combat in the game aside from the bosses and interacting with the bosses. It's just all of these systems, the puzzle, the exploration, the highlights of the combat, the minimalist story. Interacting with these giants, like this scene right here, you're interacting with the giants in the overworld because they'll like try to stop you from progressing. There's not even any game overs. The damage that you take just slows you down. It knocks you back. And it's like a no BS, like relaxed but intense experience when the game hits those highs. It's not like, oh, I can't beat this boss. I keep like getting a game over and having to restart from this checkpoint. Like the game encourages you to play it at its pace, and the pace is perfect. Play the Pathless. It's S tier. Pathless, best game I played this year. It's at the top of my list now. Next is the Red Strings Club. Oops. This was a game that it's cyberpunk in nature. It is a story-focused adventure. You play it to play through the story. And I thought it was really interesting. So, themes with cyberpunk are, like, one of the major themes of cyberpunk is human augmentation. Like, are you still human after you change your body into these different, if you use technology to change your body into these different shapes and forms? And so what's showing here, the start of Red Strings Club is less about physical augmentation and more about like mental augmentation. For example, one of the clients is like, I want to be more social at parties. Can you implant me with something that'll boost my confidence? And so it deals with this conversation about if that's okay, if it should be regulated, how far it should go. And then Red Strings Club in particular made me a hypocrite by the end of the game by like feeding me this idea of like, and I don't want to spoil it too, so I'm going to dance around it. Feeding me this idea of like regulation and what's okay to change in people. And if you had the keys to regulate this stuff, how would you do it? And the Red Strings Club told me such an interesting story that it actually called me out at the end. And I think it made for a really memorable experience because of it. And so because of that, I like want to rank it highly. It was a really fun, short experience that I definitely recommend you play if you're into like really narrative-driven games. I want to put it at A tier. And the developers of this game recently released a new game, Sisterhood. Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. So they released a new game. I want to check it out. It's got, from my understanding, a lot, if not all, of the same people involved. So another like really good narrative experience to look forward to. So with Red Strings Club, I want to put it at A tier. I want to put it here. Tori 3D was one of my streaming games. It's a short but sweet platformer, kind of similar vibes to Lunestis, just encourages you. Tori 3D is even shorter than Lunestis, so it encourages you even more to get better timings and better rankings on your runs. So I got a lot of playtime and enjoyment out of Tori just by trying to get S ranks on all 7 levels. I think there's 7 levels total. So it's short, it's sweet, it's cheap, it's challenging, it's rewarding once you do finally get those S tier times. Only confusing with one, because the game's so short, I can like be real specific with a couple of the levels. I think 2 of them have these turbines, and it's some of them are at an angle, and some of them you have to like manipulate them. You have to like manipulate them in order to get speed boosts. That isn't really clear. If I was able to change one thing about this game, it would be to like make it so the turbines made more sense and like how to speed through them. Because I had to like watch somebody speed run, see that they like kind of clipped against walls in order to use the turbines better, and especially the timing. You had to figure out the timing in order to get the perfect height to skip part of the level with one of the turbines. And like that was kind of frustrating, trying to figure it out without like knowing how the game worked, or like just by watching a video and not having the resources to have it explained to me. But Tori is good. Where did I put Lunistis at A tier. I would put Tori B tier, but I would put it, I think Lunestis just has a more relaxed vibe. It's got more content, it's got better colors, better feel. Tori feels like a step down, but there's satisfaction in trying to S tier everything and like master the small amount of game that there is. That's just like my one-to-one comparison why I'm like putting them where I am. Dude, Unsighted is another game that I did a video on. Another game that is one of the best video games that I've ever played. I am eating good this year. Unsighted is a mix between Zelda and Metroid, and the main crux of the game is the time limit. Every character has this resource in them that keeps them sentient and alive, and the start of the events of the game cut them off from that resource. You can find that resource in the world, but you have a limited amount of it, and you, the player character, are also on that same time limit. So the game becomes about playing this really, really tight, really perfectly made combat exploration experience. Those two things in this game are top tier. Some of the best platforming, exploration, puzzle design, some of the best everything I've seen in a long time. Taking that and adding this really unique narrative that further incentivizes you to play this game fast. I just want to recommend that you have to watch my video on Unsighted because I'm really happy with it. I think I do a perfect job explaining the highlights of this video game and singing its praises because it deserves it. It takes all of the mechanics of the time limit, encourages you to try to learn how to speedrun, and makes it a narrative focus too. It encourages you to replay the game. Unsighted's one of the best games I've ever played, like hands down. I put it above the Pathless even. So if you heard me gush about the Pathless and like see me put it above the Pathless, like there you go. Untitled Goose Game. So at the beginning of the year, I was trying to catch up on a lot of indie games that I missed over the years, and one of those games was Untitled Goose Game, and it was fun. It was relaxing. It was cool. Since the release of the game, they added a co-op mode, so it'd be fun to play this game again in co-op, but I feel like this game is popular enough where I don't have to like go into too much detail, and it's also like a silly game, so it doesn't like require that much detail. You goose, you do goose things, you be obnoxious, you explore, you cause havoc, you steal people's shovels. It's fun like being a mischievous goose and having a honk button when it has no, like, you know, when it's just there for fun. That's all the game is. It's simple fun. Ranking a game like Goose Game on my competitive list of games, it was good. It was B. It was B tier. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah, it was good. What Remains of Edith Finch is actually one that we played together, Anvil Tree. I wouldn't. It's on this list because we played it together. So wink, wink. If you want some games on the list, that's how you do it. It was a really cool, ooh, not scenes, trailer. Yeah, I'm glad we played it. Annapurna publishes a lot of good stuff. This was a narrative-focused... When you think of walking sim, I think this is one of the prime examples, one of the prime, like, positive examples. And you're exploring this old house that was, at one point, filled with family members. And maybe you can jog my brain about, like, the reasons that you go there. But at some point, like, the family's lives are recorded in this house as kind of you're exploring their memories through this house of people who are no longer alive. And for some reason, you need to go back and explore the house. You're there alone, and you're exploring the memory of and putting together a family tree. And it's just really cozy, sad at some points. Okay, yeah, no worries. But it's just really cozy and sad at some points, and really emotional story about exploring this weird house filled with mementos of a family like long gone in some cases. I'm glad I played it. It was definitely worth checking out. Very narrative driven, so like I won't talk too much more about it. I think it's B. Where do I rank it in B tier? I'm gonna move some of this stuff around because we're getting to the end. Bought this a while back, planning on playing it with someone that wasn't really a gamer. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's like I hate calling it a walking sim because that term seems like people use it as a derogatory term, but it's not. It's a narrative focused walking sim that works really well in that context. Sort of a puzzle exploration. Yeah, like the biggest part is its narrative. That's what you play it for. So these last two games, we'll do Zell. It's funny that I have two games, Z. I have a hard time describing Zell, and I don't want to not do it justice. So I'm actually gonna read like the Steam thing real quick, and then like we can watch the trailer too. It was interesting. So Zell shouts out to Couch MOBA and shouts out to... They go by Mara. I don't know what the full channel name is, so I'm gonna pull both of the channels up to make up for that. They both did videos on Zell, and it was on sale, so I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. Like, they do really good video essays. I watched both of the both of the Zell videos, and I'm like, yeah, I can play this. It's short, it's simple. Shouts out to Couch MOBA. Really, if you like my YouTube videos, you'll like Couch MOBAs. And then, let's see. I don't know the full name of the channel for Mara, so I'm going to find that now. So the full channel, Mara Ganger, their videos are really good, really well made, really long, really in-depth. I recommend both of these creators because without them I wouldn't have played Zell. And it is an occult adventure game. So you explore a castle, you're doing puzzle mechanics, and it's made an RPG Maker, but there's no RPG combat. So they did this really interesting thing where if an enemy pops up, then let's go to... You have to look at the enemy's eyes and click the right thing in order to successfully kill them in combat. Like combat... Sorry, Donkey. No, not the right time, Donkey. So like combat encounters last just a couple seconds. You need to like look at the color of their eyes and click on like the right color book. And it's this really unique gameplay for something built in RPG Maker. So it's got this really cool like occult... It's got this really cool occult story that like borders on horror, but is more about... It's more of a narrative focus on the characters in the story and uses religion as a backdrop to kind of like present these ideas and these characters. So it was cool, it was short, it was sweet. Much like most indie games, if you're into... If that sounds interesting to you, I would recommend it. I recommend watching Couch MOBA and Mara's video on the game too, because they do an amazing job kind of giving this game more context than I'm going to be giving it here. It's going to be B tier, as most of these things are. I got to look at B and C and go through it. Zero Time Dilemma is the last of the 3 Nonary games. 999 is the best of the trilogy, in my opinion. And then Anvil Tree and I have thoughts on the second game in the series, which I don't like as much. This is the third game in the series, and this is going to be the topic of a future video. I just have to make the video first. This is the third and final game in the Nonary games Zero Time Dilemma. It's narrative focused, choice based. You're exploring a web of events in no particular order, and then you're tasked with fitting them into an order and making choices that branch out the path that eventually like relate to each other in some way. These games do a really good job of using video games and like choice in order to tell a story that could only be done that way. Like these games wouldn't be the same if there wasn't a player interaction in them. So they're part narrative story, part escape room. The other half of the gameplay is escaping a room by solving puzzles, like using symbols and numbers and like creating new pieces of information based on the info and stuff that you find in each level, in each room. So it was really good. I'll be brief about it because I do have a full video on this game that I'm like excited to work through and put out. But this game was definitely worth going through the entire series of games and playing this one to its end. Because in order to get the most out of this game, it's the third in the series. I think you could get away with playing it without the other two and still have a good time. But it is like the third in a series. I think it goes in A tier here. Okay, let's go through. Let's go through each tier. S tier is easy. I think I did a good job putting these in order. I think E tier and D tier are easy. So A, B, and C tier are something I might clean up. Eastward, I think, is good where it deserves to be at the top. These deserve to be at the top. Doom 2016 is my favorite FPS, so it's like, obviously, as I said before, like a more complicated version of Doom 2016. Still good. I kind of want to put Soul Hackers above El Shaddai. I think all of this makes sense to me. These are all really closely ranked to each other for sure. 0 time. These are neck and neck too. No, I think Red Strings Club has a cooler message. I mean, they're both neck and neck. I can't compare these two, but I'll leave it as is. B tier. Wild Hearts, Loop Hero, I wanted more out of. Solid, solid, solid. Solid, solid, solid. None of these are like something special or like something that like C tier is like, I have nothing at all like that stands out that I need to say about each game. I think I'll move Sin and Punishment to B tier. Or C tier. I think I'll move. See, now we're comparing. This is the problem. I think I would move most of these to C tier. I'm gonna make a mess of this whole list if I like. I think most of the stuff here should be C tier instead of B tier, so that these games here stand out. Which is gonna like mess with the whole list. So let's see. Let's call some chaos. And then if I don't agree, I can move it back later. Because I think B tier should probably stop at Voice of Cards. I think Mario deserves B tier. I don't think F-Zero 99. I think it's fine but good. I think this should be the true B tier. I think Mario should be the cutoff. But then that like kind of does some of these dirty. They're going back. F-Zero 99 is going to stay at C tier. Zell. I think I'm okay putting Zell at C tier. No, it could go B tier. So the list is the same as how I had it before that big move. I just left F-Zero 99 at C tier. And I think that's okay. Okay, gamers, you are looking at, and let me check one more time. S tier is good. A tier is good. B tier, I think these just have interesting ideas. Maybe not Tori. Boom. The way that I'm like trying to like split hairs is like if the idea was creative. And I think these games are okay but have good ideas that put them to B tier, which is the same for like these top two games. Same with this. Goose Game, yes. Zell, yes. Yeah. Okay, gamers, you were looking at my tier list of every game that I played in the year 2023, ranked by best to worst. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Maybe I made some people upset, maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm just speaking the gospel. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the stream. So thank you so much for watching. Next year, I've got more videos planned. I'll try to have some more streams planned. I never do live streaming as much as YouTube because I like doing YouTube more. I think there's more to get out of doing YouTube. But it'll be fun to put some live streams in every now and then. Like if there's some event coming up, some new game release, and I want to like stream it when it comes out, then we'll do that. But look forward to more YouTube videos. I'm going to shout out everything that I can plug. So most of my content is on YouTube. The other part of it lives on Twitch. After that is... Thanks for watching the full video. If you want to support the channel, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing the video with others. You can find me at RyanBeardy on social media, as well as Discord with links in the description below.